Hey, what's going on, everybody? Couldn't be more excited to have Garrett Miller in the studio with us today. He's a member of the MyClaimsCare team. All of our contractors always asking to meet Garrett, figure out a little bit more about how he is maximizing claims for our clients across the country. Stay tuned. And welcome to the Roofer's Den. Like I said, everybody, I got Garrett Miller right now, and so excited to have him on the show, an intricate part of the MyClaimsCare team. Garrett, how you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. Every day's a good day.
That's what I love to hear, man. So let's dive right into it. What is the story behind you? How did you get involved and get to the point that you're at right now? Can you give everyone just kind of that brief history of who you are and where you're at?
So I started out just like most people in a Joe Schmo job, working manual labor and moving my way up. And my brother started calling me every few weeks, telling me, "Hey, man, you got to come up and get in on this insurance adjuster thing. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but the money is great." That was his motto for a year. It's all I heard from him. and so after a year hearing that, I was like, my money's okay, but I like great. And so I gave him a call, and he set me up, and I went up and actually lived with him for a couple of months, and ran claims behind him and a couple of the more experienced adjusters that he knew. Kind of learned the insurance game as far as from an independent adjuster standpoint. And then he vouched for me with a company, knowing that I had the intelligence and motivation and work ethic to actually be an insurance adjuster, and got me set up with the company. I got licensed and started rolling in North Carolina, right in the middle of a massive hail and tornado season, working the eastern part of the state. And then Hurricane Irene came along, and suddenly there was not enough work to cover the universe with that hurricane, especially in the more rural parts of the Carolinas. They just didn't have the manpower whatsoever. And so I ended up working 100-hour work weeks for the next year. And first 6 months of that is awesome. You're Superman, and the money is rolling in, and you're saving everybody's day that you show up at. And then after a while, my job description changed drastically as the carriers ran out of money, and it became a matter of how to retain profits, how to make sure that you don't pay a penny more than you have to, and find that minimum line that these people are just going to disappear and not cause any more problems. And that was the entire insurance game. It was the squeaky wheel gets the grease and shut up and go away. And that's all those guys ever want you to do. And I burnt out on it, man. To be honest, I got really, really sick of it. And I hung up my license after a couple of years and put in resumes everywhere up and down the coast until I found a job within 5 miles of the beach and moved myself to Florida. It was season. I was in the Satellite Beach area, Indian Harbor, Melbourne. I started out a tiny little apartment in Melbourne, on the opposite side of the bridge from where I wanted to be. And after about 6 months, the work was seasonal. It was another manual labor gig, and it started to dry up. But I was spending a lot of time on roofs still, because I was doing a lot of like tile cleaning, and I was always looking at these roofs like, man, this guy really needs to call his insurance company. Like, they would buy this roof. And I got really frustrated watching people just let things go into disrepair when I knew that their carrier would pay for them. And so when the seasonal work started to dry up, my wife actually got online and started looking around for jobs and found a roofing sales gig in the Orlando area. And we were like, well, we know it's a commute, but I know this job already. And the easiest thing in the world is to present the information to people that the carrier is obligated to buy you the new roof. And so I fell into roofing sales, and I did really well at it for a couple of years. And then these contractors started to figure out that I knew a lot more than I was initially letting on. And that's why my sales were so good. And I turned around and I started writing estimates, and I started running appraisals, and I went ahead and got licensed as an independent adjuster in Florida again. And I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now, just strictly writing estimates. Managed to get mostly out of the field and into the office. And I worked for a couple of primary contractors, individual employers that would bring me on full time and give me work so that I didn't have to hunt for it. And that was really nice. But at the same time, like, I felt like I could be doing more for the industry. And so as the contractors have come and gone, and things have changed in the industry a little bit through the AOB law changes and whatnot, I managed to come into contact with MyClaimsCare. It was actually has actually suggested that I speak with Anthony and get in touch with him through our mutual friend, Mr. Winston Tate.
Oh, Tate Law, nice.
He is one of my best friends. I've been working with him almost as long as I even started doing roofing sales. You'll have to excuse me for moving stuff around here a little bit. I'm getting sun showers, man.
It's great, man. It looks beautiful. Where are you at, man? Where are you at now?
I'm living in Hawaii now. I took the opportunity and the fact that everything was remote. My kids are homeschooled. My wife is a nature photographer, and we'd been on the Space Coast for 7 years or so, and started looking at things, and we were looking at moving to a bigger place because the family was kind of it's picking up. The family was kind of.
Put the camera down a little bit because you're it's only like your head. There you go. A little bit. There you go. Something like right about in there. Yeah. So there we go. It's perfect. Thank you.
I'd move back further, but it's raining.
You're fine. You're fine. So tell me, you end up in Hawaii. How do you end up there? Because if you wanted more space, I wouldn't think Hawaii would be the place to go. But so why was that the choice?
So it was kind of almost on a whim. Our goal had always been to end up in the island somewhere, but it was like a retirement plan. It was like when the kids are grown and gone and we have enough money to do what we want to do, we're gonna go bounce around from island to island, and that's been the plan for. I'm married 17 years now. It adds up.
Yeah, great. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's another job. You got to work at that one every day too, man.
Absolutely.
And we started looking at places on the beach. We were living almost right across the street from the beach in the 2-bedroom condo we were in, and it was time to expand. And 3 bedrooms there had gone through the roof in the amount of time that we lived there. And the prices were getting a little bit outrageous, but we really just, we wanted our beach community. And some friends that we have had moved out here the year before. And I knew that when the girl of that couple had moved here, she was paying like ridiculous amounts for a studio apartment. Like it's like triple what I would pay anywhere else. Sure. And I was like, I wonder what those guys in Hawaii are paying for a 3-bedroom place. And I looked it up and I was like, it's not a bad price for paradise. And I don't have anywhere else I have to be. Everything that I do is whenever I need to be there. All I got to do is be in front of the computer or on the phone. I don't need a physical location anywhere anymore. And it was like, well, what's holding us back? And that was how we got here, because the answer was nothing.
Yeah, that's great.
And so we we sacrificed all the little perks. I sold my car. We canceled the Disney passes. We and we got a little small, everything included, fully furnished place, and made our way to the islands. And man, it was in the middle of the COVID nightmare too, because we bought our tickets like 6 months in advance, knowing we were going, and so I could get a good deal. But that was September, right before COVID.
Oh Lord! So we're going like September 2019.
Yeah, and we moved in May.
Wow, right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was definitely an adventure, and one that was well worth it. We had the whole world trying to tell me, no, don't go. You know what I mean? Everybody's, oh, you shouldn't be traveling right now, and the airlines are canceling left and right, and our flights are getting moved around, and I don't want to let the world tell me no.
I was talking with a roofer, Savage Roofing, earlier today, and we talked about that. When the moment in life when the most people are probably trying to pull you back or tell you no, you're at a spot that's special. It's one of those defining moment spots, which could go either way for you. And it sounds like you took a chance on yourself, you took a chance on your family, and it paid off, even in the middle of maybe the most uncertainty that we have seen maybe in our lifetime.
And it's still fairly uncertain here. The island is still in a weird situation. Everything, there's still mandatory quarantines coming onto the island. It's there's a lot of businesses still shut down, or ones that are never. They said some 60% of the businesses on Oahu won't reopen because of COVID. It devastated the economy here. Devastated.
And I don't think gosh, how are they going to recover? Some of these people, they've been out without work or businesses for, over a year, probably some of them now. That's awful.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily getting better. There's investors that are coming in and buying up the property from other countries. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's an interesting situation to see firsthand. Hawaii's so remote. It's so small. All you see is the Instagram photos. If you're not here, you don't know what's happening, and it's a curious situation. Yeah, I think people should pay more attention.
So if it was happening in Nebraska, then that would be something that would be front page news. What's happening in Hawaii? Probably the devastation that's been out there to the economy. It's just like you say. I'm not there. It's not on the forefront of my mind. So it's crazy to think that that's going on in one of the United States, and we just don't even talk about it.
No, and it's an entire culture people over here that's kind of ignored. I feel they kind of get left out of the equation when it comes down to it. A lot of people know that Hawaii was the 50th state, and that's the end of their knowledge. And this place was straight stolen by the states. Stolen. I mean, go back and read your history. I'm not going to get into it too far, but it's an interesting story, man. We do not have this place by the right of law by any stretch of the imagination. So I can understand why there's issues.
Yeah, I mean, let's jump into first. I want to start with some basics, okay? You've been on basically all sides of the adjustments of being an adjuster, from an independent adjuster. You've been working for contractors. Can you explain to the audience the adjuster's role and the type of adjusters that we see in roofing contracting?
So you run into a few different ones. Your standard that's going to come out is going to be a staff adjuster at this point. That's somebody that works for the insurance carrier. They're generally salaried. They have no interest in whether your claim actually gets paid or not. They're there to close out by protocol and follow the letter of their standard operations. And it doesn't matter if it's supposed to get paid or not. My book says it's not supposed to get paid. So that's your staff adjuster. They'll play by the rules that they're presented with. And that's what they're limited to 100%. They don't get to step outside of what State Farm tells them to do. That's their job. An independent adjuster is a little bit different story because they're often...
Can I back up? I want to interrupt. Can you tell me for our clients out there, any advice that you would have for our contractors? Because they're meeting these staff adjusters constantly out there on the roofs. What advice would you have to our clients with MyClaimsCare, just any roofing contractor, about their interaction with a staff adjuster?
The staff adjuster has little to no final say unless they're also the desk adjuster, which is going to be a rare occasion. Most of the time, they are a peon that's been minimally trained to go out and identify or not identify damage, and to be able to put together a bare bones report. These guys are getting thrown into the field brand new, or you'll run into 30-year adjusters who just know that that's how the game is played and that's how they keep their jobs, is by continuing to write these minimal reports. You're only as good as your last report as an adjuster, as far as the carriers are concerned. So if you don't keep their money or make them more of it, they're not interested in your services. They'll hire someone else to go do that.
Interesting. Now, I when I go out and I talk to, and I'm in managers meetings for roofing contractors, and I hear them talk about the interaction, everybody seems to have a different approach. Do you believe there is for instance, should you point out damage? Should you chalk the roof? Should you try to, bring the guy over and show him damage? And should you ignore him? Should you be more tough with them? How should that interaction in your mind, from somebody who's been out there and seen all sides, work if you're a sales rep out there meeting that guy?
For a sales representative, now, myself, I actually, like I said, I did fairly well in sales. And the reason that I did fairly well in sales is because I never tried to bullshit an adjuster. I knew what they were going to approve, and I knew what they weren't going to approve, because I had to follow those rules too. I know what the book said hail damage is by their rules, and what hail damage really is. So I would often get on roofs with adjusters that would be pointing out old damage and say, well, this is obviously from a storm 6 years ago. We're not going to cover this. Well, my job was to point out the new damage. You can point out damage all day long. It's if you know how to properly identify it. You don't have to identify where the damage came from. You don't want to identify how it got there. That's kind of their job. It's not your job as a contractor. That's up to the homeowner to explain to the adjuster how the damage happened. And it's best to just stay out of that situation unless they're asking you your opinion. You as the contractor are entitled to give them your professional opinion because they're an adjuster. I went into the field with very, very little construction knowledge as an adjuster. I mean, a few months of studying the How to Build a House book and the adjuster training manual, and I was in the field. And I gotta tell you, my brother's motto of "I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but the money is great" became my motto real fast. It was a matter of writing what I thought was probably gonna fly and seeing if it did. And if it didn't, the carrier would take it back and say, no, you missed this and you have to do this. And this endorsement says that this isn't getting paid. Fix your report, please. And I would. And I'd kick it back out and they get paid. And it was a trial by fire 100% of the way. And most of these guys out there are operating the same way. They don't know what they're doing. They've never swung a hammer on a roof in their life. These adjusters don't know what underlayment is. They just know what the line item is.
Interesting.
And
so you got a staff adjuster. They're going out there, they're meeting our roofing contractor. Could not have experience, but then am I guessing right? The secondary adjuster is going to be a desk adjuster. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a desk adjuster is also not someone that's necessarily going to have any construction experience. They have desk experience and they have negotiations experience. They know how to say no real well. They know how to try and get contractors to turn away and how to get people to not file claims and how to take the minimums that are allowed.
Okay.
And that's who I fight with all day long. That's who we go up against, and we take that hassle of dealing with the desk adjusters completely off the table for any of the clients.
And I'm going to get back to what we're doing with MyClaimsCare and how you work with those desk adjusters. The next one I can think of would be an independent adjuster. How does that process work for the roofing contractor? I'm trying to think because sometimes a carrier will send an independent adjuster out to the adjustment. I mean, kind of walk me through that process.
So every one of those guys is going to be kind of bound by different terms, but for the most part, they're operating for an adjusting firm, somebody that the carrier has gone and hired outside of their own staffing abilities because they either don't have the manpower or because it's cheaper for them during an off season when there's not a ton of storms to hire that out and just pay the individual rates. I was an independent adjuster, and I can tell you that those guys they're a lot easier to work with, man, because they're not getting paid unless you're getting paid as a homeowner. If the claim, they get paid, but they don't get paid nearly as much as they should. They'll get paid for a no claim. You'll make $150, $200 just for stepping on site with most of the adjusting firms, even if it's to write a paragraph that there's no damage. But as the damage value goes up, so does the paycheck. So for every $5,000 to $10,000 that the independent adjuster finds in damage, they're going to make a couple $100 more on the fee schedule. And so it's in their best interest to find everything that's actually wrong. But again, it falls back to that good as your last report thing. You still have to be keeping the carrier's interest in mind while maintaining the homeowner's interest. And so that was a delicate balance for me, was because I was always trying to do the right thing by everybody, by the rules and by the homeowner, and still try to indemnify them to the best of their abilities and the limits of their policy values. And the carrier kind of got tired of that, and I started seeing less work. And that's the way the game is played.
So here's what doesn't make sense to me, and I've helped me understand this, because I think a lot of individuals and even contractors don't quite understand this correlation. All right, let's take State Farm, because everybody knows them. State Farm hires a staff adjuster has a staff adjuster on, that goes out and does it, and is going to look at the roof. I would think that individual does not have incentive to get the roof approved. They would seem to have disincentive from State Farm to have that roof approved. They're looking for the least amount of damage themselves. But then it seems to me that State Farm would hire an independent adjuster to go out there, and that person is paid on getting more damage approved. Why would they hire somebody and pay them more based on the approval than a staff adjuster, where it would seem they'd be looking for less damage? The two don't seem to correlate.
For one, it's a liability issue. If the independent adjuster is wrong, it's on the independent adjuster's ass to make it right.
Okay.
If they write it wrong, the carrier can sue and subrogate against the independent adjuster that did the job improperly. That's what errors and omissions insurance is for. It's for when the carrier comes after you because you accidentally wrote antique flooring instead of plywood. Yeah. Things like that when you get overpaid.
Got it. Now
also, they're bound a lot more. Well, I won't say more. The independent adjusters are very well bound by the letter of the law. You really put yourself on the line when you go out there and start writing claims on people's houses. It's the biggest investment of their lives. They want to make sure you're right. You have to make sure you're right, because if you're not right, the Department of Insurance, the North Carolina Insurance Commissioner, and the carriers are all going to come after you as an individual, as an independent adjuster. So it falls on them to be a lot more accurate, I feel, in my opinion, to write the reports a lot more accurately than your average staff adjuster who's just trying to work through the volume as quick as they can and get the claims closed out.
Well, the staff adjuster, I mean, the way I'm thinking about it now that you've kind of opened my eyes to it a little bit, the staff adjuster is working for one carrier, while the independent adjuster could be working for multiple carriers. So if you're pushing through shit on that estimate that you're writing and you're consistently doing it, then it's not just going to be State Farm. It's going to look at you. It's other carriers as well. So that's how you can have your ass against, the fire, because, hey, you're just writing a bunch of bad claims and now everyone is looking at you as the bad guy.
Yeah. So it was,
okay.
It was really unregulated when we came in, and when I got started, my what's the word? My mentor, I guess, put me on track with writing every report a certain way. A really, really standardized explanation of every individual thing, pictures all laid out in the same order, everything titled properly. None of the other guys were doing this. Every report for every different carrier was some different standard. They were all written in a different order. They all required different verbiage, and we kind of came through and within a year pretty much standardized the industry in that part of the state for how claims were supposed to be written and how they were going to be accepted by the carrier. They wouldn't take these guys turning in handwritten notes on yellow legal pad anymore. They were before we got there. So I kind of feel like I'd like to take that concept and bring that into what we do with MyClaimsCare too, is to try and standardize this industry, to standardize the reports that the carriers are getting from the contractors.
Yes. So let's dive into MyClaimsCare. I'm going to tell you the number one question that I'm going to go through some number one questions from our clients or potential clients that we get all the time. I'd like you to kind of spitfire with me, if that's okay.
Sure.
First question we usually get is, how can your people within MyClaimsCare, Garrett's team, get more per square than what we are getting? Is there some kind of secret sauce without revealing too much? What is it about us that we're doing that these other guys are not doing across the country?
Knowledge and persistence. It's an intricate web that's been woven between the insurance law, the workman's comp law, the construction law, international building code, state and regulatory building code, and policy language. And I have a decent insight and a good understanding after a decade of being in this business of all of those things. And I feel like that's where we really shine, is that most people find one of those things and they fall into it as a niche. And that's where their focus goes. And my focus has been the big picture. And that's what Winston calls it. He tells me all the time I'm his big picture guy, and he's one that we trust each other to go to, because we both have this kind of concept. It's a situational awareness that every claim is going to have to be handled individually and uniquely, because you're dealing with an individual. You always have to go to an adjuster who's going to be different than the next adjuster, who's going to act different than the next adjuster. Some of them are going to be nice. Some of them are going to be assholes, because that's what they get paid to do. They have their job for the last 15 years because they're a really good asshole and they save the carrier money. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's different. And we come in and being tied in, especially to the client's CRMs, has made an enormous difference in that, because again, that's all the big picture. That's every note that every sales rep has ever made. That's every note that every crew member has ever documented. Anytime that an adjuster, or not an adjuster, and anytime a customer starts to be a problem, we know, hey, maybe we'll go a little easier on this one and close it out so that problems go away. Everybody still makes their tidy little profit, but we don't have to try and kill this one. It just needs to move. And so I think that's where we're really shining, is the ability to look at each individual unique component and provide it with the approach that it deserves, as opposed to this cookie cutter standard of going after every single one exactly the same way and just playing a numbers game. I like the uniqueness.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with persistence, is that, you are able to focus on strictly the estimate and the supplement, while a contractor is out there trying to focus on building their business. They're worried about production. They're worried about commissions. They've got all this other stuff that's distracting them, all this noise distracting them away from the claim. You and your team are focused on one thing: maximizing that claim for the roofing contractor.
Well, and for the homeowner. I mean,
great point. Great point.
People like to use this maximize your claim thing a lot. And while I appreciate the concept of it, that's not necessarily the job of an insurance company. to pay the maximum value. It's their job to pay a reasonable, fair market value. But they've made that really unlikely. They've turned achieving that reasonable, fair market value into a battle between them and the homeowners. And instead of taking responsibility for it, they take that battle and they project and shift all of the blame onto the contractors who are providing actual reasonable market rate estimates.
Yes. So here's my question to that. Because the insurance companies have shifted it so far to the left underneath market value, do you think that's why you see so many adjusters and companies and contractors overshooting to the other side to try to meet it in the middle? And what do you think that's doing to the industry right now?
I think making it a little bit harder for people, because honestly, this has been my approach, particularly in the Florida market, for at least the last few years. And I've picked up enough knowledge from the rest of the country now, working with some 20 odd different contractors spread throughout the states, that that's not how it works everywhere. Florida is a different ball game and a different beast, and you have a lot of leverage with attorneys there that you just don't have in these other states. And so I've learned that go hard doesn't always work everywhere. Sometimes you just gotta be right the first time and be able to defend it till the end.
I'm out there, and when I'm talking to our clients, whether it be from a sales or marketing perspective, Garrett, what I am telling them is that it's a case-by-case basis, state by state. We can't just say that we're going to go in there and ask for 800 a square if we don't know the situation behind the roof. What kind of damage are we talking about? What kind of shingle? Is it tile? What are we talking about here before I can jump in there from MyClaimsCare and say, this is how we're going to approach that roof and how we're going to approach it for your business? Is that the correct way of looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, every client that we've had so far that I've gotten a chance to have one-on-one discussions with, we've had that exact discussion. Everywhere is different. Arkansas gets 300 a square. That blows a lot of contractors' minds. It blew my mind when we started writing claims in Arkansas, because who can build for? I don't know. Somebody can build for that. Apparently, a lot of contractors can and are. But in Florida, that would run you into the ground.
Sure.
In Virginia or Michigan, that would instantly destroy your business to try and build a roof for $300 a square. Once you were 3 roofs in, you'd be out of money. And so everywhere is going to be different, and everywhere is going to be different because everywhere follows different rules. Everyone has their own set of building code guidelines. Everyone has their own set of workman's comp rules. And I love getting into those details and learning all of those different intricacies about each one of these individual states. I love it. Every time we get a client in a new state, I'm like, I've got half an hour of homework to go do so that I can learn everything about this state so that I can kill these adjusters when I go at it.
I love it, man. That's what makes you so special and such an intricate part of our team here at MyClaimsCare. And one of the other things that I get out there is this question from contractors inevitably is, well, if you're just doing it remotely, how does that process work with using an adjuster that is not going to be on the roof itself or at the house? Can you walk us through that process, Garrett?
A properly trained sales representative is going to make all the difference in the world for that. If I can get the photos that an adjuster would provide, and it's not hard to learn this, and you really just need a decent checklist and maybe a couple hours in the field with somebody showing you what to do and how to do it properly. If I have the photos that I need to do this as an adjuster, this is how a lot of those adjusters would work, is they would hire somebody to go into the field, scope and sketch the roof, and then they come back and they'd pay them $50 or whatever for going out and being in the field for a few hours. And then they would write the report and collect their piece. That's sort of how we're presenting it at this point too. I obviously don't need to be writing estimates for roofs that don't have damage. So, I mean, unless somebody just really, really wants to pay for roof out of pocket, but that's not the kind of business we're doing here. that takes me out of the equation at that point. Roofers can do their own cash bids because they know their own expenses. But when it comes to working with the insurance carriers, they don't want to just pay a lump sum cash bid. They're going to make that a fight every single time. And so, we kind of bring the battle to them using their own weapons. Xactimate. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. Xactimate. I want to know more about that.
I was going to say, Xactimate is now used by 9 out of 10 of the United States' largest insurance carriers, and 10 out of 10 of Canada's. Their pricing and methodology is the #1 most researched and vied for in the industry. And so that's kind of where the gold standard of estimating has gone to. It's most insurance carrier reports that come across your desk are going to be written in Xactimate. There's few carriers that are switching it up and trying to use other suppliers, but this is still the standard and has more weight and value than any of the other estimating platforms because it's been around the longest. And it has the most source of input. There's some 2 million different samples that they take from all over the nation between the carriers and the contractors to put their pricing methodology together. So when the carriers decided that that's the weapon they're going to use, that's the weapon I'm going to learn how to use.
When you're talking about Xactimate, another question that I receive from roofing contractors is, with Garrett and his team writing the estimate, what about interior damage that maybe you can't see from an eagle view, or interior damage that the contractor is not going to handle? Is that something that you're still writing an estimate for? Is it a case-by-case basis? Can you talk to contractors?
It is sort of case by case, honestly, and that's one of those one-on-one things that we cover with a contractor too, because you can't invoice for work you didn't do.
Yep.
I can estimate for it all day long, and we can make sure that the homeowner gets that money in their hands. But when it turns around and comes time to invoice the insurance carrier for recoverable depreciation, you can't bill for work you didn't do, and I can't even put invoice on it and still have it in there. The easiest thing to do that I've noted is to ask the carrier or the contractor. If the contractor is not going to do the interior work, make the homeowner understand ahead of time that that it all is going to get paid together, and they're going to get that money handed back to them at the end. And we'll even go ahead and just agree with what the carrier says a lot of times, just to make the process move faster, because the interior reports are often pretty well written, depending on the adjuster. There's not nearly as much as they leave out. When they do, it's pennies. It's a few bucks worth of masking the walls here and there. It's not $6,000 worth of roofing materials. That's where the profit is. That's where the pricing difference is, and that's where the battle lies. So
Yes.
A lot of times the easiest thing to do is to say, yes, we will include the interior in the estimate, and I will do exactly the dollar figure that the carrier has said has been prescribed to the interior, and cut your homeowner the check. When they pay their deductible, you hand them back the check for the interior cash, and everybody's followed the rules, and the homeowner can do whatever they want with pursuing additional funds for interior depreciation or whatever they need to do.
See, and that's what I love about what you do, Garrett, is that you're looking out for both the homeowner's best interest and the contractors. It's not just forget the homeowner. And as you said, I love what you said about it. It's not just about maximizing the claim. There's a level of customer service to adjusting that you have mastered, and making that balance between the carrier, the homeowner, and MyClaimsCare. My question for you is, have you always been that kind of integrity and that kind of character in you, or did that come really from just seeing the worst of both sides of the equation when you were working as an adjuster for the contractor, for independent, for the carrier? How did that come to be for you?
It's just sort of an inherent nature, man. The best part about being an insurance adjuster was showing up to the people who really needed the help and being able to provide that help for them immediately. Somebody gets their roof blown off by a hurricane. That's pretty intense, man. It kind of changes your life. And when I'm there 16 hours later after they've made that phone call, and they haven't even gotten their car packed up to leave to go to the hotel, and I get to be the guy that shows up and says, all of that's paid for and taken care of. You'll get a check in the mail in 3 days for $10,000 to cover your additional living expenses and start you back on your way towards normal. I loved that. That made every day of my life a good day. And then, like I said, a year into it, and that's not my job anymore. And my job becomes, I would write these great reports justifying why these people deserve to get their roof replaced. The shingles are far too brittle to be repairable. And it's like 86 shingles busted on one slope. It's 25 years old on a 20-year roof. The roof needs to be replaced. I send it off to the carrier. Carrier kicks it back and says, no. We're going to do 1.5 squares of repair on this roof. Rewrite your report. And so I get to be the guy that goes back in and rewrites that report under deductible. And my name is signed at the bottom of every one of those independent adjuster reports that's getting sent back to these homeowners. So I'm getting drunk dialed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Where's my money? Not the job for me anymore.
I get it. So can you walk us through a process? There's contractors out there that are listening that they want to work with MyClaimsCare. What does a typical process look like and getting the estimate written. Can you walk me through from there through the supplement?
Sure. Well, the supplement is generally coming out of the gate. A lot of the carriers don't want to play ball until it's a final invoice. So we often will end up having the same fight twice, but it's all in the interest of getting to the best result. I will present an estimate the second we have a contract signed with a homeowner. That claim is filed. It's got a claim number on it, and you've got ink to paper. Send it to us. We get the photos in that we need to be able to properly scope it. We'll go ahead and order measurements. If the contractor hasn't already gotten their own measurements, we'll get satellite imagery measurements as long as they're obtainable. And I'll go ahead and put together the best possible estimate with everything that should be included in it and every possible building code we need to adhere to.
Absolutely.
The carrier will always come back and say, we don't pay for this, and this. I've learned very, very well that that's not a legal excuse to not do something. We don't pay something. If a contractor's customer just decides, we don't pay for drip edge. Well, it's already on the house. Somebody's paying for it. You don't get to dictate what the contractor is charging and doing after the fact.
Absolutely.
The customers don't get to nitpick and pick and choose the products that go into what's required to rebuild a roof. They don't get to tell you, no, I don't want the code required underlayment. Just slap the shingles on. I don't need that crap. There's requirements that contractors have to abide by in order to legally perform their job. And the carriers are the same way. They have these same guidelines that they have to abide by. In order to replace a roof properly and indemnify your homeowner, you're going to have to pay for all the same code crap that the contractor has to pay for. Otherwise, it's a homeowner's out-of-pocket expense, and that's not the deal they made with the carrier when they signed the contract.
Garrett, see, so this seems very simple to me, okay? So tell me about how the discussion goes then between you and the carrier. If you know they're going to come back with these excuses of, I'm not paying this, and this, where does the conversation go from there?
This is my favorite part of every day, is arguing with the insurance adjusters. I call it adjuster re-education.
Okay.
because I get to teach them about the building codes and the laws within the state that they're working in. I don't touch policy language because there's so much litigation out there about unlicensed public adjusting. You don't want to discuss policy language as a contractor. Unless you're an insurance adjuster, a hired public adjuster that the homeowner paid to come and do their own service, or an attorney, which is basically the same weight and value as a public adjuster, only with less percentage. Unless you're one of those guys, you can't talk policy language. It's strictly forbidden in everywhere. So what you have to do is know your laws. You have to know the requirements of where you live. You have to know the requirements of actual construction, and then you have to be able to present that. You're not going to have as much luck hiring an 18-year-old kid coming out and popping macros into an estimate, because they're not going to have that experience with individual unique situations. They're not going to have been on site and watched the wood cave in on somebody's house because they knew it was going to happen looking at the window flashing ahead of time. They're just going to write those reports and put themselves in a position to lose money if they're not fully properly seeing every conceptual line item that can go into these estimates.
So you're not only using the law in that state, you're also using your experience that you have as an adjuster and being in the field to ensure that the line items that should be included are included on that claim. That's the best thing possible for the homeowner. It's obviously great for the contractor and MyClaimsCare, but as you said earlier, which I want to come back to, it's the right thing for the carrier to pay out. If it is an item for them to pay, if it's on the code, it's time to pay that. And so what you're trying to do is say, hey, listen, and I'm not going to use the word maximize, but you're trying to get everyone the right amount for that roof that should be paid out according to that state's laws. Am I hearing that correctly?
And honestly, the right amount, if you're utilizing the software and the information accordingly, is nearly double what the market value currently is. And that's two reasons. That's one is the insurance carriers. The pricing methodology that they're using is mostly sampled from insurance carriers. So they still are reporting the same prices that they were reporting 15 years ago because that's what they're still paying out. The contractor sample is like a 5 to 10% portion of the actual sampling that they're pulling in. And most of these guys are just using the line items from Xactimate. They're not going back in and reporting that there's a 15 to 20% material increase every 6 months these days. We're constantly getting these letters, but I'm watching Xactimate's price list go down.
Oh my God.
Repricing from January to April, I saw an estimate lose about $4,000 in labor and materials. And I'm like, now, I know that's not right. I know that's not right. Who are they sampling and who are they getting these numbers from? Because there's no contractor out there that's spending less money in April than they were in January.
None. Zero. I see all the memes out there, Garrett, with the wood, the cost
of plywood.
Right now. Yeah, I mean, I see these memes everywhere all over Instagram where, they'll say, this is what it used to get you, and, this is what it gets you right now type of deal. So you do the great job of using your experience, using the laws, using the code in that area to get them the most and the fair amount of market value for that customer, for that contractor that we have. But let's jump ahead here. We get the roof put on. What are you doing as far as communication with the contractor as the roof is being put on? Is there pictures that need to be sent to you? How is that communication rolling out?
If there's anything extra that they want to be charging for, pictures are the best way to get it paid. The carrier is generally not going to want to pay for what they can't see. That's one of the main rules in the industry you learn as an adjuster is you better photograph it or you're not going to be allowed to include it on a report. And same goes from the contractor end. It's the easiest way to win the game is to play by their rules. And they've got the rules stacked against them and they don't even know it. And so it's fun to show that to them and just lay it out in front of them and tell them, well, Xactimate is component-based software. They have right in their licensed user agreement that you're not allowed to preclude me from using certain line items or changing prices in there. It's against the rules for you to tell me I can't change the price. Contractors don't know this. Most of the carriers have no idea. They're very upset when I point out that they're violating their own user agreements by not negotiating with me. And so it's like I said, it's this web we've woven of all of the information that can be used to go in and fight this battle. The carriers have built their army of attorneys and desk adjusters, but man, they're grunts. They're all front of the line cannon fodder, and so we're here to play the same battle, but we're smarter, and we're going to sit behind the lines and just nuke them all.
So, Garrett, I know that from a lot of contractors, they may be wondering or may be concerned that they don't know what pictures to take. They don't know exactly what to look for. Is that something that you review with the contractor when they come on board with MyClaimsCare?
We have like a checklist, basically a little go-to sheet that makes it a little easier for them to present to sales reps out the gate. And I know that My Claims was working with some people that are helping to train towards that industry. We've got Keith over there who's sort of our roofing concierge, and he's trained up sales for other companies. He's well versed in this and can help in that regard and has been as far as getting these guys set up and what they're going to need to know and what we need to be able to properly and effectively do our jobs.
Yeah, I was just in Tampa yesterday with Keith with a client of ours who was it used to be Nick's Contracting, but now it's Armor All Roofing. And Keith was wonderful out there, being able to educate those sales reps on the process with MyClaimsCare, and then of course working with you and your team on the estimating side. Can you walk
writing a bunch for them? I like those guys a lot.
Do you? Okay, well they like you, man. So they're great. And let's kind of fast forward here. Now that you've gotten the pictures during the production side, everything has maybe been submitted over to you. You mentioned that the supplement is really written into the original estimate, but that sometimes you have to argue it on the back end. What does that process look like after production is complete?
So there's usually paid when incurred costs. On almost every one of these policies, there's going to be something that they're not going to pay until they see a receipt or a finalized invoice that says the work's actually been completed. They're not going to pay for code items like your decking renail or I'm trying to think of some other stuff. Felt upgrades, like the new Florida building code says double felt on everything. They're not going to pay for that until it's been done because it didn't pre-exist.
Okay.
Permit costs, things like that. Like there's bits and pieces that are built into the estimate that you can't get until it's completed and you've submitted that final estimate. In addition to recoverable depreciation, there's usually another chunk of money there, even if it's small. $500 here and there on 20 claims a week turns into pretty big money pretty quick.
Huge. So what I want to make sure that I'm understanding this for the roofing contractors out there. Me kind of play. I guess I'm going to play dumb, and I am a little bit ignorant at the same time. When you're trying to argue those secondary terms, I guess you'd say after. I'm going to call it post production. I want to say argue either. That's the wrong terminology.
Present,
sure. Discuss. Post production. What you're really looking at are the things that they didn't originally pay out, things that needed to be added on. And what you're trying to do is say, listen, I included this stuff in my original scope. You guys said you weren't paying it at that time, but now is a time where you do have to pay it, so you need to pay out. And you're also discussing things that were missed or they couldn't be seen during the initial inspection.
Yeah, that allows us the opportunity to present any supplemental repairs that go on that weren't included in the original scope. So usually where the argument comes down is that initial estimate. It's always higher than they want to pay because theirs is always lower than what the contractor wants. That's the name of the game. So they will usually come back to me and give me the "we don't pay for this" list and the rundown, and I will find reasons that they do pay for those things, and I have evidence and reports where they have paid for those things. Or if they're right, I'm also happy to make the proper adjustments to my estimate. I have no problem going back in and taking out 3 or 4 line items that shouldn't necessarily be there. If I wrote a roofing permit cost into a Virginia claim where they don't require a re-roof permit, I fix those. I'm happy to go and make the concessions towards an amicable resolution. I always want to end up friends with these guys at the end of the day because I'm going to see the same adjuster supervisors are going to show up on my desk over and over and over again. Because every time they get an estimate that's $10,000 higher than theirs, it's going to the supervisor. Anytime that these guys don't talk to me for 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to the supervisor because we're making it go to the supervisor. They don't get to sit there and blow us off for a month while you guys are busy building the roof. While the contractor's out there spending the money and putting the work in, they don't get to just ignore that we're actually trying to reach a finalized number before they build the roof. I'm always trying to get to that settlement agreement before the nails hit the hammers. Like, I'd love to have everyone settle out beforehand, but that's not the way the adjusters or the carriers want to play the game. So I basically come back with my defense to our estimate and find where we can make the concessions to find that agreement, and again add in any of the supplemental repairs and all that paid when incurred stuff that they said they'd pay when it was done. And we try and find the best agreement possible. And in all honesty, there's 3 or 4 things. I'm not going to go into specifically which line items because I like my trade secrets a little much. But there's a few things that the carriers will always say no to me on. But by saying no, they're breaking the law. It's a perfect setup to say, this is a federal regulation that you're telling me directly to violate by not paying it. Please clarify in writing for the insured that you're having me violate this federal statute so that they know why they're getting hit with the out-of-pocket expense. That writing never comes. What comes next is a phone call saying, hey, let's work this out. Yep. So we find that happy number.
And that's one of the things that I think gets overlooked when I hear that from you is what we're able to do at MyClaimsCare for the homeowner themselves without having you and their team, Garrett, during that situation you just described. A contractor may have to sit there and go, maybe I couldn't build the roof. Maybe there's not enough built into it. Maybe the process has to drag on. And so that homeowner, that customer for the contractor is not going to be as satisfied. There may be additional damage that happens to their home. We're looking out not just for the contractor who's our client, but we're looking out for that homeowner to move their claim through quickly so that they can get a new roof on and they can get back to their life.
Yeah, well, it's them that the money is coming from, to be honest. When it comes right down to it, the client's customers have to be our customers.
Yes.
I'd love to say that we, like that we just cut that line off and we're just dealing with contractors and not touching homeowners. That would be, every job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers, as it were.
How about your interaction
uh,
though with the customer? Do you interact with the homeowner themselves, or is your contact with the
when
contractor?
when I need to, usually we'll let we have people in the office that'll do that because homeowner interactions are going to take away from my time and my ability to continue cranking those estimates and arguments out for these guys.
Yes.
It's up to me to get the settlements, not to make the homeowners happy. But we have people for that.
Yes, we do. The roofing contractors, I want you to understand this. You've got Garrett and his team doing the most they can for you with the carrier. Then you've got the MyClaimsCare team that is interacting with the homeowner as an extension of you as a contractor. So that means they're talking to that homeowner as your back office. So they're not, Garrett's over here in the background doing everything he can for you. And on the front side of it, we've got our team working hand in hand with your sales rep and your production through your CRM to go ahead and make sure that the customer service is there, which leads me to my question. Go ahead, Garrett.
I was just going to say, also, I want to go ahead and clue contractors in because some of them seem surprised when this happens. I CC every homeowner on every email. If I'm going back and forth with their adjuster and I think that the adjuster is doing something that's not necessarily appropriate, I want the homeowner to see that. I want the homeowner to see that we've reached out 6, 8, 10 times in the last 6 weeks to try and reach a resolution, and that the carrier and or this individual is not being cooperative and stopping us from being able to help you. We are always here to help you, and that's our goal. And I want them to be fully on board with every step of the way so that when these guys break the law, they have to say it, and that the homeowner's already aware of it, that they're all clued in. They have every step of the process with me is also with the homeowner. Full transparency, 100% across the board. It's the only way to do things.
And that's how we do it at MyClaimsCare. We want to be transparent with the carrier, with the homeowner, and the contractor. And I'm so happy you mentioned that, Garrett. Can you talk about the length of the process, so the timeline that a contractor should expect? Let's take your typical, shingle roof that they send over to MyClaimsCare and they say, yep, I've opened up a claim number. Here's a contingency agreement. I'm ready to go. How long should they expect? Does it vary? Can you give me an idea of what that looks like?
So every state varies.
Okay.
Every state varies as far as what their individual rules are. Most of them have somewhere between 60 and 120 days to come up with an answer and say whether or not they're going to pay for a claim and assign a dollar figure to it. So unless something prohibits them from doing that, and they like to throw that concept around a little bit, a high estimate from a contractor could be a reason that prohibits them from paying the claim out because they haven't reached an agreed price. So the time frames get thrown around. As far as we're concerned, generally speaking, I see the most movement between about 30 and 45 days. The claims get sent over to us. We kick out the estimates as soon as we can. I try to avoid that right of rescission period and file after that so that the carriers can't try and play and take advantage, tell you to go find another contractor. I like to skip and bypass that process and turn it in so that your contract is actually a contract and not just a handshake agreement until the carrier says otherwise. Then we're following up consistently and constantly, at least every 3 days. I'm trying to get the process even more involved with that, but 24-hour phone calls drive these guys absolutely insane. If they get a phone call every other day, they're getting voicemails from us saying, hey, we see that this has been assigned to you. Customer service representative on your end told us that this got assigned to you on the 11th. It's been 3 weeks and we've been calling you every single day to try and get this resolved. Work with us. And the homeowner gets to be a part of this process when we put it in writing. And so they see every step. And like I said, the number one rule, as soon as I walked in the door as an insurance adjuster that was presented to me, was the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Make the problems go away. If you are a quiet customer and you never file a claim in your life and all you do is pay your premiums, you're the best customer that an insurance carrier can ever wish for, because all you're doing is handing them free money all day long. As soon as you're a problem, you're a liability to them. You're not an invoice anymore. Now your money going out the door.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that an average person struggles with insurance is that most people want to be agreeable in their life. And they believe that if they pay their premiums, that their insurance company has their best interest at heart 100% of the time.
Why would you think that?
Well,
Because that's what the
commercials. We got it. There we go. And they've done such a great job of marketing it. And I think that what you have to understand as a consumer is that these are individuals and entities, corporations that are for profit. They have shareholders that that they have to answer to. And huge profits. And when insurance first began, it wasn't meant to be a big profit maker. The idea was that you would pay the premiums in, the premiums would go out, and that they would make their money on investment. Now what you see is that you see insurance companies that are double dipping all over the country, meaning that they're making money on their premiums and they're making money on the investment on the back end. So my advice to homeowners right now is that don't be afraid to file a claim if there is damage. You don't have to be agreeable with your insurance company, afraid of them that they're going to drop you if you have damage on your roof. If you experience damage and you pay your premiums on time, you deserve to have a proper hearing. If you want to look at it that way, a proper adjustment. You deserve for your company to pay out if there is damage, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. You should be the one in the front of the line going, hey, I paid into this process and I deserve a fair shake at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually my number one selling point. I'm not a great salesman, as it were, but I did awesome in roofing sales because I had the answers to the questions. And that every time a homeowner asked a question, I knew the answer and I would provide them with that information immediately. And the carriers won't do that. And most contractors won't do that. And especially when I'm filing insurance claims, I'll be completely honest with you. If your roof does not have damage that looks like an adjuster is going to buy it, I'm not going to touch it. I don't even want to write the estimate. There's no reason for me to waste my time or yours to put any liability on you, like being threatened with filing, fraudulent claims or whatever. We don't want to get involved in that. I like everyone to be 100% above board. And I lost my train of thought with you there.
I know what I was going to say though. I was going to add that is what makes the MyClaimsCare reputation within the industry so good, because we have someone like you and your team on the background right now that is being able to say, hey guys, listen, this isn't a claim that we need to push through. This isn't the right move to make. All right. So we're going to do things the right way. We're going to do things above board. And because of that, the reputation that you have personally with the carriers out there and the reputation you have with the adjusters is impeccable. And I think that goes undervalued when we talk about what kind of claims process that we have with MyClaimsCare. Well, we have one that people respect. We have one that people know have integrity with it. And they know that we're not trying to push through shit because we have someone like you at the helm that's running things. And I think that's very overlooked in the industry when it comes to public adjusting. And I'm just happy we have someone like you on board that understands that and puts value in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 in 10, but I see the claims come across my desk from, you can tell if it's a new sales rep because they'll have 60 awesome pictures of blisters on the roof, which isn't hail damage. It's wear and tear stuff. But they'll get right up on it and get like perfect proof that every one of those is not hail damage for me, and I appreciate it. I love that they go through the effort, but then I have to turn around and I'm sorry, I got to break your heart, man. There's no reason to even file this claim. Please don't waste your customers' time. Say thanks, have a nice day, wait for the wind to blow, and call me back, and go next door.
Yep, I love that. I love how the integrity that you have behind what you do is truly incredible. I kind of want to end with, I know we've walked through the process now with MyClaimsCare, with your opinion about where things are going in the industry with public adjusting. I know there's some laws that may be changing here in Florida. What about, do you see changing in the industry over the next year? Is it Xactimate? Is it the way that carriers are going to work with contractors? Can you kind of give me a little bit of a heads up?
I think that there's going to be a swing back eventually. It was a very, very contractor-centric group of people kind of running the show, 20 some years ago when AOBs first started to show up as a potential on the scene. I guess it's not even been quite that long yet, but 12 years. It's been a few cycles to the point where it's all different people in power now. And the carriers have put their money towards that and put their people in positions of power. And, lobbyists have gotten to the industry from the opposite side, basically. And I feel like it's a pendulum swing thing, though. It's the same way that politics works. One person's going to respond a little bit harder. The other guy's going to come back harder next time swinging.
Yep.
So I don't know that there's ever going to be a middle ground between carrier and contractors until somebody just says, this is what roofing costs, period. But I don't think you can do that without nationalizing roofing either. So it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. There's always going to be an adjuster who has to argue with somebody like me, or with the contractor, or with the homeowner. And it's a lot easier if it's with somebody like me, because it's all I do and I'm good at it.
That's right.
And I take great pride in being right.
And I think you make a great point. Roofing ain't getting nationalized anytime soon. There's too much money in roofing for everybody, whether it be the carrier, whether it be the contractor. So, everybody's going to continue with some kind of process, even if it changes. There's some laws that change. We're going to need someone like you, a professional on their team that is able to get the most for them and get the most for their customers in the right way. And I'm really happy that from the MyClaimsCare perspective that we have you on the team to be able to represent MyClaimsCare and to be able to represent the contractors and the homeowners they serve. Because I think it's easy for anybody to see what kind of professional you are and what kind of integrity you have.
Well, I love being here, and I love being able to expand this and bring it across the board to the industry. Like I said, I'd worked for one contractor at a time before, and it was always like such a massive turnaround for these contractors. I'd watch them go from pulling $350 a square and just accepting it and moving on. Within 3 years, now I'm getting you $600 a square on a daily and regular basis. And how were you even operating before? And they go, we were losing, And this is a few of these guys in a row. And the industry comes and goes. Contractors, unfortunately, come and go. And it's not, it's some of it's the economy we're in, some of it's the individuals and how they want to handle their own business, But I love MyClaimsCare for me because it allows me to bring it to everyone. And as we standardize the industry, this becomes the industry standard, which is what the insurance carriers have to pay. If all of the contractors in Florida are billing $800 a square, that's what the rate in Florida is. It doesn't matter if the carrier says they only want to pay $500 and that's unreasonable. Well, now when you go out and sample 10 different contractors, and I'm writing the reports for all 10 of them, it's the same rates.
Yep.
So we're bringing this industry in as a whole. We're trying to bring everybody up and into the fold. I want the homeowners to be honest. I want the contractors to be honest, and I want the carriers to be honest. Everybody follow the letter of their contract, be on the up and up, and everyone will get paid and happy.
And if they don't decide to do that, that's what we have Garrett and his team here at MyClaimsCare. That way you can make sure that does happen because you're the best at it, man. And we're happy to have you a part of the team. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day out there in Hawaii, man.
My work day is just getting started, man.
I love it, man. So it's the middle of the afternoon here. I got a couple onboarding calls, get some more people on board here with MyClaimsCare for the rest of the afternoon. And I'm on board with
bring them
over there. Yeah, we got it. So really appreciate you joining the Roofers Den. Thanks a lot, Garrett.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, buddy. Bye now.